Well, that's a theme song we haven't heard in a while, ladies and gentlemen, as it's time to go out to the west coast of the United States and talk to our resident motion picture reviewer. His name is Michael Snyder. Hello, Michael.
Hi, Alex, and greetings all you folks out there in GABNet and Roku land, etc. Hope all are well, and we're hanging in here in Hollywood and doing what we can during a very strange time in history. But in any event, movies are still getting released, ones that were made prior to the pandemic, and we're getting them on streaming services, and let's review a few of them. The King of Staten Island is the serio-comic story of a very pivotal time in the life of Scott, who is an indolent 24-year-old living with his widowed mother on Staten Island in the New York City area. It's the latest movie from director-screenwriter Judd Apatow, but it's more a showcase for the movie's star, Saturday Night Live's self-destructive bad boy Pete Davidson, who also co-wrote the script with Apatow. And it's worth watching with certain caveats. At a considerable 136 minutes, The King of Staten Island is a generally appealing, albeit overlong, showcase for Davidson's kind of shambling comedic and acting skills. Scott was just a kid when his fireman father died, a hero's death, and now his smart, cute, and ambitious little sister is off to college, and this leaves Scott at home with his mom, who's ever patient and loving, and otherwise distracted. Marissa Tomei plays the role, and it's the latest in a string of attractive working-class moms she's been playing. This one is a nurse who decides it's time to finally start dating after many years of devoting herself to motherhood and her career. And this is a problem for Scott, who was kind of a layabout, and he loves his cushy life at home, and he doesn't hit it off with mom's suitor. By the way, very well played by actor-comedian Bill Burr. The guy has skills, man. Anyway, Davidson's stunted Staten Island man-child seems so fully realized that I'm guessing it's probably a consequence of what I presume to be a lot of autobiographical inspiration here. Anybody who knows Davidson's story will tell you that his father was a New York City fireman who died on 9/11 while on a rescue mission at the World Trade Center. So this has got to be extremely personal for him, and it feels that way. It's also the second recent pretty impressive screen outing by Davidson as a likable but immature and kind of frustrating self-destructive character. Last year's solid big-time Adolescence had a similar character. It suggests he's really good at playing versions of himself. You know, goofy, skinny, tattooed, somewhat troubled. And now the movie, again, is a little too long, and it ambles a bit, but it's actually amusing and affecting, largely due to how fully realized all the characters are, including a very terrific Belle Powley, the actress from Diary of a Teenage Girl, and she's been on The Morning Show on Apple TV. She plays Scott's earthy, sweet-natured, and kind of casual sex partner, thoroughly Staten Island, despite being a British actress. Steve Buscemi's in this as a very sage fireman and knew Scott's dad. And Maud Apatow, the director's daughter, plays Scott's sister. This was surprisingly engaging. Again, a little long, but I recommend checking out The King of Staten Island. Artemis Fowl, premiering on Disney Plus today, is a questionable exercise in franchise building that is purportedly based on the first couple of books in a kid's fantasy series about an obnoxious but supposedly brilliant adolescent named Artemis Fowl Jr. and his battle to find and save his missing dad and kind of as a side effect, save the world. So Artemis Fowl Sr. has been kidnapped by a mysterious villain who threatens humanity and is an equal menace to the fairies, trolls, gnomes, and such who live in a high-tech kingdom many miles below the surface of the earth. Not very well explained, but, you know, you keep rolling with it as you're watching. Young Artemis and his companions are everybody's last best hope, whether anyone knows it or not, and have to uncover and protect a secret device, the MacGuffin here, or everyone's doomed. So the movie is directed by Kenneth Branagh, who genuinely is a solid director and generally knows what he's doing, although when this thing was over, my reaction was, what the hell just happened? There are CGI flourishes, some cool designs. Plus, you get Colin Farrell as the missing Artemis Fowl Sr. Judi Dench cashes a check here as a tough-minded, gravel-voiced fairy who leads the Magical Realms army, and Josh Gad is on board as an information-dumping narrator who comes in the form of a giant dwarf. Yeah, don't ask. There must have been so much material in the two books. For all the visual dazzle and sound, the resulting hour-and-a-half movie feels jumbled and pointless and truncated, like too much was missing to allow for a complete and satisfying story. I mean, one character is introduced as someone significant early in the film, given little to do, and just disappears before the climax, never to be seen again, even as the good guys set off to find the big bad. That's right, at the end of it, they're off to find the big bad, and you may think this is a spoiler, but it's actually a warning. The villain's motivations, backstory, identity, and status at the movie's end never revealed. Not that we care. And that's a problem when Artemis Fowl reaches a conclusion, and it's nothing but a setup for a sequel that I, for one, won't be waiting to see. Maybe this would have been better if it had been expanded into 3 episodes of a 10-episode miniseries, but that's not what it is. Okay, Judy and Punch is a fanciful drama set in what I presume to be the English countryside of the 1600s, inspired by the classic knockdown, drag-out Punch and Judy puppet shows that originated back then and were also inspired by the 16th century Italian Commedia dell'arte theatrics, featuring Punchinello, who's kind of an angry, violent jester, and his constantly victimized wife. In this movie, Punch and Judy are the puppeteers as well as the puppets that represent them. They're also newly parents of a baby daughter, and Punch is a self-absorbed bully who dominates his wife, Judy, while she's like the real talent behind the act as far as making and manipulating the puppets. I mean, they're living and performing in Judy's hometown, where the couple is like honing the act, hoping to be seen by London talent scouts, but Punch's lust for success is only matched by his love of booze and carousing in bars, and his carelessness and ego make him much less than the ideal husband and father. And to make matters worse, the town where they live is the kind of place where townspeople look forward to throwing stones at women accused of witchcraft. I mean, I guess the age was still pretty dark when this thing is set. Anyway, Judy and Punch was done with care and verve by the writer-director Mira Folks, and it makes a statement about spousal abuse and unbridled ambition, and the actors swing with it. I mean, Damon Harriman, he's appropriately skeevy as Punch, and Mia Wasikowska, the Aussie actress who's kind of best known in the U.S. for maybe playing Alice in Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland movies. She's noble and plucky and endearing. You could do worse than watch Punch and Judy. You can rent or buy it on Apple TV or Fandango now. And finally, I got to mention The Trip to Greece. I love the Trip movies with actors Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon, who are both really popular performers in the UK, and they go on what might be their last comedy-fused culinary journey in this series of travelogues that started 10 years ago. I mean, Coogan and Brydon, longtime colleagues in real life, bring their terrific rapport to these chronicles of like eating and sightseeing and bantering through so far England, Italy, Spain, and now Greece. And again, maybe they went to the well once too often because this thing is a little on the familiar side. They, as usual, seem improvised, and you get a chance to see these beautiful kind of tourist landmarks, and Coogan and Brydon channel past and present pop culture, and they have references to their trip and the cultures that they're visiting. And, again, the joy of these excursions is keeping company with these guys as they spout all these witty takes and revel in the food and drink. And then they do these dueling impressions, too, some of which are fantastic. The first couple films they did, among others, Sean Connery. And of course, their Michael Caine duel in The Trip was a high point. And here they have a really cool face-off of Mick Jagger's. And then at one point, Brydon's Marlon Brando is countered by Coogan's Robert De Niro. But again, we've been here before, and the fact that this might be the last one is emphasized by it being more concerned with aging and loss than the previous installments, and it kind of ends on a somber note. But they've been a hell of a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed watching these films. And in fact, you know what? I kind of like them better as the 6 half-hour episode miniseries that each one is before it's cut down by the director Michael Winterbottom into a feature film. Anyway, you can see The Trip to Greece on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, YouTube, Google Play, DirecTV, and more. Are you watching anything on TV, pal?
Well, I mean, TV. What's TV? I mean, TV is basically your streaming services. So
Sure.
on Hulu, we watched The Great, which is actually pretty great. It's good.
What's it about? I don't know it.
You're not familiar with this? This is a 10-part series on Catherine the Great and her relationship with Peter the not so great.
Peter the Terrible?
Yeah, Elle Fanning plays the Catherine the Great, and Nicholas Hoult plays Peter. And it's written by the guy who did The Favorite, wrote The Favorite. I can't remember his name now. And it's really very good. It's really terrific. I enjoyed it, and Marjorie enjoyed it, and it's 10 very satisfying episodes. It's sometimes comedic and sometimes very, very dreadful. You know.
Is there a horse involved? I'm sorry, I had to go there.
Well, that's the big joke in the show. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. It took this time in seclusion, this what do you call it? This quarantine for me to try out Schitt's Creek, and man, I used it. I've been using it as, what's the word? It's been like a tranquilizer. I just watched an episode of this Canadian comedy with the great Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara, and a really terrific supporting cast.
I have tried to watch this thing and cannot for the life of me get into it.
Wow, it's crazy. I just totally took to it. I find it really funny and sweet. And you got to admit, Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara have won an awful lot of goodwill from Second City TV on.
I found it forced and cheap.
No, they really did a lovely job. The first season takes a little bit of getting used to in terms of the rhythms of it, but the final season, which I guess would be the 6th, just ran on Pop TV and whatever its associated networks are, and I guess it'll come to Netflix soon. And people who have been watching it, I'm sure, are anticipating binging on Netflix. And I literally binged it over the course of a week, all 6 seasons, and was thoroughly entertained and sometimes emotionally moved by Schitt's Creek. I wanted to also add that, the son of Bob and Ray's, Bob Elliott, Chris Elliott from the old Late Show with David Letterman, has a significant part in this thing. And initially I thought, his shtick again. But you know what? In the context of the show, it works really well. And the young actors who play the kids of the Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy characters, Annie Murphy and Eugene's kid who co-created it, Dan Levy, they're wonderful too. I just took to it. What can I tell you?
What about the movie theaters?
Well, they're reopening some of them, and I guess 50% capacity. I don't know what to even think about this. I'm not going to go to a screening room anytime soon. We're waiting for spikes in the infection rate, and we're seeing some of it in places where the states opened up. I don't know. You're down on theaters anyway. You have been preferring to watch things at home in the comfort of your place with your big screen and what have you. And I think you're right when you say that's been the trend. But I heard AMC chains are closing in some states. I don't know what's going to happen, frankly.
I think it's the end of the movie theater.
I'm not Cassandra, but we'll see. The numbers are not going to be helpful. How much popcorn can half the audience eat, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean I think the main form of distribution now is going to be through the home. The question is, are they going to make movies as big as they made them? Okay, are we going to have those $500 million productions? Are they going to take a risk on that for just home viewing? But the new venue is the home, so
I'm curious about what the numbers are going to be in terms of Artemis Fowl, where they probably invested a lot of money and they really didn't get much for what they paid. That's a problem. I
think the King of Staten Island, for instance, is going to do much better business at home than it would have done in the theaters.
I will grant you that, particularly since it's of the very newest things here. It's the most watchable and the most And again, at 2 hours and 15 minutes, 14 minutes, it's long, but you're at home. You can stop it, get up, take a breather, and then come back and see this schlub as he goes about his business.
A good example is Trolls World Tour, which was going to be released to the theaters. They had to release it to home viewing, and has wound up making more money, they say, than they would have ever made in the theaters. That's been the gold standard so far. I don't know what this means for things like Mulan, and certainly, again, a touchstone would be the James Bond film, which has now been moved to November. We're going to see. We'll see how things play out.
Yeah.
And, it's I don't know. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, well, anyway, there's the theme playing, and tell them where they can find you, Michael.
I am on Twitter at Culture Blaster, on Facebook at Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page, and you can read my reviews at marinatimes.com. When I get a chance here on GABNet.
Yeah, we'll do that again in a couple of weeks. Meanwhile, the rest of you stay right where you are, because there's more GABNet coming right up.